Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Holly Stewart. Holly is a multi-unit franchisee with two men and a truck. If you don't know Two Men and Truck, you need to check it out. They are the first and largest franchise moving company in the world. They have diverse revenue streams in moving, packing, junk removal, storage, and a lot more. So Holly owns 3 franchises, has 5 offices, and 45 trucks, and she works with a whole lot of men that are moving people from here to there. So welcome, Holly. We really appreciate you spending time with us today.
Glad to be here.
Holly, I have a question for you. So you seem to have this very atypical transition into franchise. It doesn't seem like you have a whole entire entrepreneurial background, from your childhood. You come from a very, Southern traditional family. How does this young traditional Southern girl end up in franchise managing all these trucks and all these guys?
Well, it was just sort of life's plan, I guess. Yeah, I do. I'm from South Carolina. I had a dad that went to work, a mom who stayed home with me and my little brother. We had picket fence and dogs and did the whole nine, very traditional, typical upbringing of the 80s. And I kind of fell into it. So I followed the path that I was supposed to, in quotes, follow, and did well in high school, graduated college, and went and got a job in corporate America. Tried that for a while and decided that just really wasn't for me. And I wanted to go back to school to be a teacher. That was something that I had interest in growing up, and my father had sort of discouraged me from that. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. I applied and got in and was going to go back to school to get a master's in teaching certificate, and figured, don't want to drain my whole bank account while I do that. Let me go find a job that I can very easily clock in and clock out, so I can devote the time to school, that I need to do if I'm going to pay to go back. Just as luck would have it, saw an ad for 2 Men and a Truck answering the telephones as a customer service rep, and applied, thinking I can clock in at 8 o'clock in the morning. I can answer the phones really easy, hang up, and go get focused on what I want to do. So it was never, man, I want to be a franchisee. Man, I love moving. I want to be a boss at a company. It was literally, this can pay some bills, and I'll just get in and get out of here as quickly as possible. That said, when I went to interview, they said, you know what, your qualifications look more like a general manager, and we just had a position open up. Why don't you come give that a whirl? So I called the school back and said, can you defer my enrollment? I would like to still come, but I need to focus and figure out. I've never worked in anything that 2 Men and Truck is. I've never been a general manager of a shop. I've never had this many adult males to lead. I don't know anything about trucks or moving. So I need, so that's going to pull away from my studies. So let me figure this out, and then I'll come back to school. They said, sure, absolutely. Actually, the way that it worked in with timing of everything in a snowstorm, I was allowed to basically get my money back, keep open enrollment ready to go while I figured this out, and actually never look back. Fell in love with it, realized the impact that I could make very quickly. I liked the franchise model and the small business. There was a lot of learning curve to do on the moving and trucking and all that kind of stuff, but I enjoyed the challenge. And quickly, I figured out that if I was looking to teach people and train them and give them skills, life skills, I was where I needed to be. I could still do that without having a teaching certificate and being in front of elementary, middle, or high school kids. That there was just as much of a need in a workforce as anywhere else.
This just cracks me up. I mean, it just cracks me up. Here's someone who's got her mindset. You got your mindset on being a teacher. You're willing to go the extra mile to get your master's degree, to get your teaching certificate. You simply go apply for a job that, you can just hardly think about in after hours. And it takes you down a completely different path.
Totally different. Actually, what's funny is, before I came here, I was in a small market research firm. I don't remember what had happened that day, but my colleague and I were walking out and she looked at me and she goes, "Imagine, Holly, maybe one day we'll own the company, or we could own our own company." And I looked at her, I was like, "Are you kidding? I would never want to own a business." I'm like, then you're responsible if they don't show up. And no, I would never want to do that. And I mean, never say never, right? Because then 5 years later here, that starts, and 15 years after that conversation, I'm on this podcast with y'all talking about how I've been a business owner for the past 7-8 years. So
what a riot. What a riot.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of funny when I think about it, because you are still kind of a teacher and running a school, but it's largely an all boys school at this point, right? I mean, I don't know how many women are, doing the hauling and the moving and that kind of thing, but you're still a teacher, right? And what you're doing.
yes. Yeah, we're teaching, and we're teaching everything, I will speak on, it is mainly, it's definitely a male dominated industry. We do have women in the office, and typically we do have at least one, either a packing crew or a woman who's on the moving. So, I mean, it's a co-ed school, but predominantly male. But we're teaching people skills and one of my favorite things to do is actually someone will say, "Oh, I've never done that before," or "I'm not sure I can do that." And, being able to say, "Well, I can see that you can. I know that you can. Let me help you get there. Let me walk you through it, and let's train you, teach you. You watch me, I watch you, give you the positive praise." And, you quote unquote graduate with flying colors when 3 months later I walk past their desk, or I see them out on a move, or they bring their paperwork back, and it's like they've been doing it their whole life. Like it's like riding a bike to them. So that's really rewarding, and what keeps me going when every job has its ups and downs, right? So there are days that aren't my favorite. And when I have one of those, it seems like, just a day or two later, then I have a moment where I can see something like that and say, "You know what? I am making a difference. I'm helping these people." I like to think of it as moving people forward, which is actually our core purpose at 2 Men and a Truck. And when they declared that, I was like, well, good thing I'm already here, because that's what I do. So, but then we take it beyond that. I know we had talked about that before too, that it's a 2 Men and a Truck is my business, but when you're a business owner, your business is your life. You're always working. Who you are as a person, you don't have, yes, you can put on different hats, but you're still always the same core being. So it transcribes to all aspects of your life, including your business. And I really just enjoy giving back to the community and helping people. So, and doing that training and teaching. So whenever I can, I try to take that a step further. So whether that be, we've had some movers who come in who have dropped out of school early, had to help support their families, and don't know how to read. They've memorized the paperwork. And, we've gone all the way back to stage 1 reading books that I had with my daughter back in 1st grade. And we go through them and we learn how to read. Or we've brought in bankers to teach them about financing and how to set up their checking account and things like that. So we try to make it I try to make it a very whole purposed training. So if it's a school, they don't sleep at the office. I feel like I do sometimes, but it's kind of more like a boarding school or like a college, where you really are learning beyond just what you need to have to go out and do your job. Plus, 2 Men and a Truck is a service related business, right? So we sell boxes, but for the most part, we're not selling goods, which means we're training people all day, every day, how to interact and deal with people and have those good relationships. And if that's not the skill set that you need to be successful in life, I'm not sure what is. So.
Wow. You can literally unpack any part of any of that you just said. It sounds to me like you're really just setting people up for success. You're teaching them success. You're teaching them mindset. You're teaching them life skills. But I have a very specific question for you, which is going back to something that you said that really impacted me. You said, I never did this. I never did that. I never did this. I never did that. And I think that, I consider myself being on the outskirts of franchise. And I think that so many people are afraid to jump into franchise because they never did this. They never did that. How do you relate what you never did, like seeing yourself overcome, seeing yourself in the position that you're in now? You never thought you'd be a business owner. How do you relate all of those nevers to how you empower others, right? Like you have to see it in yourself. Like I can't give what I don't have, right?
Sure.
So if all of a sudden I'm seeing that, hey, I never did this, I never did that, I never did this, I never did that, but I was able to do all of that. Now, how do I turn around and empower others with that? Or is that the spring that you draw from to empower others?
A little bit of both. I mean, it's definitely a spring I draw from, when somebody says, I've never done this before. It's like, and neither had I or neither had whoever else until they did it that first time. Like, Michael Jordan's never touched a basketball until he touched a basketball. Right. So, I've been there, done that. I feel that I've been, one really cool thing about my story and which is not necessarily even unique for 2 Men in a Truck. But as I worked my way up, I didn't come in as like we were talking about before. I didn't see myself like come in as a financier and this serial entrepreneur. I worked my way up. So when someone says they can't do it, I'm going to sit down and do it with them. Or I can say, I've done this before. This is what I've learned. I almost think the opposite when you say people have hesitation in going into franchising because they've never. If that's your fear, franchising is actually your answer, right? Because you've got this whole support system. You've got a map laid out. You've got people who've come before, people who are coming after, in your exact same brand, right? With all those resources. So it's one of those things where, now, it's one of those things where basically like you start it and it's not like as soon as you start, you go, oh my gosh, I'm doing it. You just, this needs to happen and I'll do this, or I'll make a phone call and I'll follow directions. And I'm not thinking about like the huge end result. I'm just following step by step. And then all of a sudden at some point you look back and go, I'm doing this. I've learned this. And when you think like, how do I know this? And you think back and you're like, wow, we were talking about my dad before. He recently made a comment to me. He was like, you are so fortunate to have found the franchisee and the franchise system that you found because you've learned so much. So you don't have to come into franchising. Or business in general, really. But if you're going into business for yourself, maybe it's a little nicer to have some knowledge, but you don't have to go in with all the answers. One, you've got people to help you.
Right.
And then two, you learn as you go. You're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. That's one thing that, when you say, do I pull from that? Absolutely. I make mistakes. We do this and we evaluate, I evaluate everything and I make a decision. And rarely is it 100% correct. Most of the time, if I've done enough of my research, it's in the 90s, right? And so then it's a small tweak here or there. But if it's totally wrong, it's totally wrong. Scrap it, keep going. Like life goes on, business goes on.
Yeah, which goes back to your theme. Goes back to your theme, Holly, of moving forward. This one step at a time, one foot in front of the other. I mean, even your founder, first off, your founder is a woman, right, that started a moving truck business. That alone is a fascinating story, how she went about that. And that's all she did, one foot in front of the other. And boom, now we have this massive, the largest moving company in the world, and how she did that. And then you also had someone with two men and a truck that saw something in you that maybe you didn't even see in yourself and gave you an opportunity to manage, which then take you to the next step, the next step. It's just take that next step. It's the moving forward, you know, and not allowing fear.
Yeah. Just don't think about it. I had another, this is outside a 2-minute truck, but somebody, I messed up. I don't remember exactly what I did, messed up, but it happens, right? So I messed up, and a colleague said, "How did you not just like sit down and cry?" Like, I would have been devastated. I was like, I had no time for that. I had, I wanted to, but I had no time for that. I had to fix my mistake. And so, that put me into these 10 action steps. And then I was like, by the time I was done, I didn't want to cry anymore. Like, we had moved past that, and we had fixed it. So I think that a key thing, if you're looking to get into franchising, or you're a franchisor looking for more franchisees, is you look for the grit, because the grit is what keeps people going, right? It's the passion, it's the competitiveness, it's the drive. And it keeps going. And like you said, sometimes you feel confident, and sometimes you have to, someone else, or you're the person instilling, that confidence. I see the beginnings of something beautiful. Let me help you cultivate it.
Wow.
That's great.
I want to be in your head. This
Yeah.
is just incredible.
Right.
Do you mind sharing with us? You have a generous heart, as does your company in general. There's a lot that you guys do to help others, and what role that plays in you as a person and you as a businesswoman.
Sure. So this is one thing that has stayed the same, I guess, from my upbringing, right? Every other place, that independent. So like the independent and grit that I'm talking about now, my parents called stubbornness. But, so it had a purpose. So if you have unruly kids, like, they're going to be amazing. Just try to survive. No, but that was one thing that my parents did instill in me, is giving back to the community, doing customer service, helping those in need. So that's just part of who I am, what I find passionate. I went to college and joined a service sorority instead of a social sorority. We still had the parties, but we also got up on Saturday morning beforehand and picked up the side of the road, or, read to kids, or went and tutored and did all the things. So that's just kind of part of who I am. And so it made for a really easy fit when one of the published core values of 2-minute truck is giving back to the community. And it has allowed me, I've been really fortunate in that, because it's allowed me to continue to grow and give back, and let the company do so as well, and provide an avenue for others to do it who are with me, right? So one big program that 2-minute truck does is we call Movers for Moms. And we do that in the spring, right around Mother's Day. And we partner with a local charity that our local shelter that has women and children, and we collect goods that they need, and do that all around, like I said, around Mother's Day, to kind of remind the community. We actually set up this year with our shelter. They go out, in addition to they have a shelter for the women and children. They also go out and outreach and give out sandwiches and meals and things to those who are homeless. And so we made an opportunity for our employees to go out and volunteer at this organization as well. So it's really, that plus, like, shoot, when COVID hit, a lot of companies are closing down because people are terrified. People don't want to move. They don't want to invite strangers into their home. And so we could close our doors, or I said, no, the community has kept us alive this long. Now's our chance to give back to the community. And I'm being affected, but so are my movers. They still need a job. And now we don't have customers to give them that job. So we kind of flipped our lid, and we said, we have a budget that we give back in community service every year, with free moves and free manpower and transit and services. And we gobbled it up in 6 weeks. We gave out meals, we transported things, we did everything that the community needed, to keep going. And so, and what has been really touching to me is either, like, my, birds of a feather flock together. So either I have found and attracted employees with like minds that's who they are. And so we as a corporation kind of represent that. Or maybe we've kind of rubbed off on some people. And they, they really enjoy it. And they speak a lot about how they give back to the community. One of our movers actually out of the whole nation was selected. So I think that's about 11,000 employees. He was picked out as our Move Hero of the Year a couple years ago because of the level that he gives back to the community and how he's teaching his children to do it and how he coaches on the side and runs food drives during, Thanksgiving and things like that. So, yes, I do have a generous heart and I love doing that, but I don't think I'm like the weirdo. I think most people are like that. They just don't realize that you can kind of blend it all together. You can make money and help people and at the same time.
That's beautiful.
Mhm.
That's beautiful. Is there a particular characteristic or set of attributes that you look for when you are hiring people?
Yes. I want them to have good work ethic.
Yeah.
I want them to have a good attitude. And I want them to be trainable. The rest we'll give you. If you're looking for a moving job, I mean, there are some physical restraints, obviously, but beyond that, I mean, we'll teach you the proper way to lift and move and drive and answer the phones and computers. If you want to go into accounting for when you were on the phones, we'll teach you that. Like we can teach you that. I can't teach you to show up on time. I can't teach you to be personable. I can't teach you to get along with others. I sometimes can mediate that and get you back, but those things, I mean, you've got to bring those to the table with you. So when I'm interviewing, if somebody smiles, they laugh, they seem personable, they show up on time, those kinds of things that seem really small are little hints to me that this person cares and we're gonna be fine.
Nice.
Which speaks to that customer service part of you and the teacher part of you.
Yeah.
Because these folks you're working with, it's not like, they've had 15 years of corporate success. In some cases, they could be a first-time job or their second job or whatever. So your willingness you actually described it a little earlier, Tracy, kind of the mama bear, where you're willing to teach them how to climb the tree and hunt for honey or whatever a mama bear teaches a child, but you're willing to bring those resources either from a banker or someone else or from yourself to learn the skills to be successful at their job, but also push them forward, move them forward to whatever is next for
Yeah. I probably just have that nurturing spirit in me, that mama bear, both protective, but also, nurturing. And so it's to me, that doesn't translate in being like super sweet and coddly to them, like some sweet mama bear types are. It's more aggressive and we've got to get you ready. You're going to grow up and I'm going to push you out the litter and you got to be successful. And I'm going to be so proud of you. But also on the business side of things, if you're not, like, that's not good for me. So we all kind of have to work together on that. But yeah, I think, it's funny because I do get the question a lot, speaking earlier about sort of breaking the mold and being a woman in a male dominated industry. That is hard. And it's hard to break through at the beginning. But when people ask, like, how are you so successful with that? One of my one thing I have figured out is it's the dynamic that most people are used to. And I am very, what you're catching up, or what you're picking up on already is I'm very like family oriented and family based. So one of the things that I really am really proud of is whenever any of our employees are interviewed, and don't tell them I said this because it'll ruin the whole thing. But whenever they're interviewed, it always comes up that it feels like a family. They say it one way or another. And I'm like, then I have done my job. That's what I feel like. So I think that translates there again in the business side of things where they're used to, yes, it's hard and you got to earn the respect. Like, what is this woman doing managing men? What is this woman doing telling me she knows what she's talking about with trucks? These kinds of things. But once they figure out and earn your respect, then it makes sense. Like, she's in charge, just like at their house, the mama's in charge. And if mama needs to yell and scream and tell you, not that it's horrible like that, but you know what I mean? Like, if mama pitches a fit, we don't make mama mad. We figure that out. And then, we want to please her and we want to do right. And on the flip side, mamas want you to be successful and is going to give you all those tools. So that like family dichotomy, that dynamic right there, that whether it's mama bear or some, whichever side of me is flaring out, but I think it translates really well. So it's almost like it's harder for me to get in, but once I get in, if this is sort of your business mantra, or if this is kind of how you conduct yourself, then it actually long term it can be easier and maybe even more successful.
Yeah.
At least that's my thought as a woman. That's that's what I'm going
I'm
with.
actually getting chills as you're talking. And Tracy, I know I interrupted. I'm sorry. Because I like how you reframed this mama bear, because mama bear wants to create independent, successful individuals. So she's going to critique, she's going to offer feedback, she's going to yell, she's going to love on, she's going to teach the cubs, right? And the cubs trust her and they respect her, and they don't want to let mama bear down. So it really is an interesting, beyond just a family feel. It is a mama bear culture that you have created that creates this mutual love and appreciation and respect. And then these cubs move on in their lives to either become business owners themselves or whatever. That's a beautiful culture.
Yeah. And just to build on what you were saying, Rebecca, and you hit the nail on the head when you said trust, because that was the word that kept popping in my mind when you were speaking, Holly. It's about trust, that they know you have their back, you're going to stick with them, you're going to guide them. And it's no different than being a parent in a loving family. If a child feels like parents are going to love you no matter what you do, and we're going to guide you to do the right thing, then they can go out, experiment, dip their toe in the water. And if it's too hot, come running back, but know that they're safe to go try. And then, like Rebecca said, to continue to want to not impress, but want to live up to those expectations of those characteristics that they were instilled with. Yeah.
Right. And that's one thing that is tricky as a business owner, right? Is to allow someone else to take your money and make their mistakes. But you have to give them, depending on which level, what level they are within your business and how much authority they have, but you do kind of have to give them the wrong way and give them space. But if you think of it in a parenting, just, like with my kids, I mean, you slowly but surely back off and give them a little more space, and they prove to you, they get your trust, you get theirs. Speaking on trust, and it works back. I mean, we have in our business, we definitely have the Ronald Reagan culture of trust but verify. Yes. But yeah, I mean, I tell them all the time, I cannot do this business without them. On the flip side, they can't do it without me. So let's work together.
Yeah.
We're a team, we're a family. So Holly, you're a single mama, you're running 3 franchises, 5 locations, 45 trucks, lots of people working for you. Folks that are watching you, they're going, holy schmoly, right? And you've been doing this a number of years already. What advice would you give a man or a woman, but in particular a woman who is considering business ownership, considering franchising? What advice would you give, or what mistakes have you made that you hope others don't make, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I made plenty of mistakes. Which ones to avoid? I don't know.
List,
I think that maybe part of it is knowing that you will. And it's okay. I do think not moving is in a sense moving backwards when we talk about moving people forward. So an indecision is a decision in and of itself, whether you want it to be or not. So if you're considering it, I mean, don't just say it pops in my head and I'm going to go with it. But I mean, if you've given it serious consideration, you think you have the time and the passion, and you're willing to make mistakes, you're willing to have hard days, you're willing to learn, and you have that stick-to-itedness or whatever they call that, then do it. It's the most rewarding thing that you can do. It's hard. I work all the time, but then I also do have really great work-life balance. I thought you were going to go somewhere else with the question, and I was ready to tell you that I don't that I don't get my clothes out of the dryer on time most of the time. So I might be busy doing these things, but my whole life isn't revolving the way, quote unquote, it should. So.
But this idea,
that's my nemesis, laundry.
This idea,
but no, I think
mistakes, right?
Yeah. Now I think if you're considering it, it's just mistakes I have seen other people make, right? That haven't stayed for a while, which is different from myself or my, other franchisees. We were interviewed as a group, for the news a couple years ago, and she asked us about all of our backgrounds, and they were wildly different. And she pointed that out, and she said, y'all are all so different, period, come from such different backgrounds, and your story and how you got in here is all so different. How are you all so successful? Like what is the secret sauce? Because it doesn't look like there's anything that really we can pull out of you guys. And we all looked around for maybe 2-3 seconds, and we said it in different words, but we were all like, we keep going. We're stubborn. We've got grit. We, when we don't know what to do, we just show up. We show up every day. And we show up. And there was a time in my business where I just didn't know what was going on. I just thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. So I told someone, they were like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other, and I'm going to show up until there's nothing left to show up to, which obviously didn't happen, but it's just that. So that's the key, it's not getting, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to get knocked down. Do you have the mental strength? And everyone doesn't, and that's okay. But do you have the mental strength to, when you think your world is about to implode on itself, get up and show up?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow. Tracy, I know you have some final thoughts and we need to wrap up, but this conversation could go 1,000 beautiful directions, from the keep moving forward, keep showing up, one foot in front of another. You're going to make mistakes, cry for 2 seconds, keep moving on, kind of thing. But what are your final thoughts, Tracy?
My final thoughts were the impact that I felt when you were telling the story about no time to cry.
Yeah.
We're so busy fixing the problem that we don't have time to cry. I love that. I'm literally going to take that into every aspect of my life. Even with my kids, if they're complaining, no, we don't have time to complain. We're fixing the problem. Go fix it.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then we can complain. I'm not saying don't feel your feelings. Right.
Yeah.
But I think once you get a little further away from whatever you're complaining about, crying about, self-pitying about, then you have a little bit better perspective. And it's okay, if this really is worth crying, let's have a good cry. But if it's not, or you figured out it might have been, but I've already fixed it now, so water under the bridge, keep going.
Yeah. It's delaying the crying. It's not denying the crying. We're just simply delaying it while we use that same energy to fix it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love that. I have loved this interview.
Me too. So Holly, how do people learn more about Two Men and a Truck, and learn more about you? What's the best way to get in touch?
Well, 2 Men and a Truck, you can just go to our website, www.twomen.com. My franchises are in the Atlanta area. So you can easily kind of look at the one closest to you and learn about us. I think there again, I mean, you have my name. I'm Holly Stewart. I think if you Googled Holly Stewart 2 minute truck, you might find some other stuff about my franchises and me and how to find me. But yeah, we're a really cool company. I would definitely recommend you look us up, we're always looking. Okay, well, let me just say this. We're always looking for good people, whether that's good employees or good customers or good partners. We're just always, we're very much a relationship based company. So I would encourage you to look us up, see about our story. Like you mentioned, Rebecca, it's a really cool story about Mary Ellen Sheets founding the company. Our logo is actually something she drew up for her boys on this logo on a little cocktail napkin. Right. So it can start from nothing like that and really grow. And now we just launched our junk removal line of service. So we're getting into a whole other line of service and meeting a whole new industry and new things and meeting new competitors and that kind of thing, and which is really fun and exciting. So we're big, but we're still moving. We're still moving people forward, right? Whether we're talking about customers and the services they need, moving on to different stages of their lives, or even our employees. So definitely look us up, reach out, call your local franchise, send an email, send a chat, however you like to communicate with people.
I love it. Thanks again, Holly, for joining us.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed this. Is going to be the highlight of my day, if not my week.
Yay. We love that. We love that.
Yes.
And the rest of you that are listening in to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships are forged, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next week on another episode.